Hello and welcome to the International News Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Dunicic. Before we begin, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel to stay in the loop on the most relevant and occurring international affairs today. Let's get right into our main story, which is breaking news. What is apparently a coup d'etat occurring in Sudan? Now, I want to make things very, very clear. Information has been extremely hard to get. I, like every other media outlet, has been receiving information from the Facebook pages of the Ministry of Information and other Sudanese government officials. So a lot of this is very difficult to construct, especially considering that throughout many moments of today, the internet has been completely shut down in Sudan by what apparently is the military. Now, in order to fully understand this story, I have to give you some historical and current context first. Sudan currently has a government that is transitionary. It is not democratically elected. However, it is made up between a council of members of the military and civilian members. It's split half-half. Half of the members are civilian individuals and the other half are military individuals. And the reason because of this is the previous government of Sudan, run by Omar AlBashir, was overthrown in another coup in 2019. Now, this was a military government, and it was overthrown by itself, the military, who was willing to begin a process of transition, which would change the military government to a civilian government. And the current sovereign council that has been running Sudan has been split by civilians and the military. And the original plan was from 2019 until 2024, fully transition Sudan into a democratically elected civilian-run society. Now, recently events in Sudan have occurred that have made this significantly more complicated. Last month in September, an attempted coup occurred. Now, this wasn't successful, and the military did not manage to gain the full control over the government. However, what has occurred today, and what is completely confirmed, and what we know of, is that the de facto and appointed, not elected, but appointed civilian Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok has been arrested, and his current whereabouts are unknown. In addition to this, many other civilian ministers and leaders of the transitional government have also been arrested, with their whereabouts and their current situation being unknown. Now, they probably haven't been harmed and nothing's probably happened to them, but we don't know. No one has officially heard from them. No one knows where they are, and the military has not made any official statements on what's going on, what its goals are, or what its intentions are. Now, I want to make some things very clear that recent weeks after the previously attempted coup in September, tensions between the civilian side and the military side have been extremely high, with a series of different disagreements, arguments growing to a boiling point. And this is not just at a governmental level. I want to make things very clear that the support for a military government also exists among the citizens of Sudan. And there are a lot of supporters of a democratic government. Now, these citizens have also been clashing and protesting and demonstrating in the streets against one another. Typically, the people supporting the military regime and military rule are people coming from an older, hardline Islamist political point of view, believing that the military is the one way to ensure stability. Now, people supporting the pro-democratic movement are individuals that want to have a more open economy, a more open Sudan, and a more progressive type of political system. Typically, these individuals are younger. Now, I want to make things very clear. Coup d'etats and transitions of power are extremely common in Sudan. Ever since the country received its independence from the United Kingdom and Egypt in 1956, coups have been common. In fact, the previous military dictator, and who is considered internationally to be one of the worst autocrats in modern history, Omar AlBashir, came to power through a military coup which he led in 1989. Now, he led Sudan for 30 years, and these 30 years were extremely rough. Omar al-Bashir was an individual that was wanted by international courts for violations of human rights and alleged war crimes, particularly those that occurred in the western Sudanese region of Darfur. In addition to this, the United States alleged that he supported different terrorist organizations. And that's really important to note. That's what made life hard for Sudan. The US officially designated Sudan under the leadership of Omar al-Bashir as a state sponsor, as a terrorist sponsoring state, putting it on a list that created heavy sanctions, making the rest of the world, making trade with the rest of the world, international cooperation with the rest of the world, almost impossible. Sudan was a complete pariah, having only one lifeline to global trade and international cooperation, which was China. And it should be noted that Sudan should not be a poor country. It has a massive amount of oil resources in addition to other resources that can be sold and create a very large and successful economy. However, under the government of Omar al-Bashir, this was not possible. And this created serious economic issues. And as I mentioned on my podcast before, when people are hungry, when they're starving, when they don't have an economic future, they're willing to revolt. And in 2019, protests became so massive by civilians, primarily led by democratically pushing political parties and, interestingly enough, the Sudanese Communist Party, who was looking out for the interests of Sudanese workers. Protests against Omar al-Bashir's government occurred, and they became so massive that the military itself decided to overthrow him and instituted what today, or until today, was a transitional government. And now, with the arrest of Abdalla Hamdok, who was the prime minister, the appointed prime minister, it seems that the military is trying to regain control. Now, nothing can be said for certain, and this is still currently being called an apparent or alleged coup. However, all of the indicators, the classic historical indicators of a coup, are there. The civilian leaders have been arrested and their whereabouts are unknown. There has not been any comment by the military yet. The internet has been shut down multiple times, and the state-run media has been overtaken by the military, with the military entering the offices, the headquarters of the state-run military in Omdurman in Sudan, and the only thing that has been playing on Sudanese state-run TV has been traditional patriotic music followed by pictures and videos of the Nile River. Now, it's pretty apparent that a coup is occurring. However, the motivations of the government cannot be known, or the military cannot be known, because this situation is developing as we speak. Now, I want to add that all of this information has been pretty much gained from the official Facebook pages of the Ministry of Information, which is civilian run and by different government officials. The situation is going to continue to develop as we speak, and I am going to also be reporting on it. Now, I'm going to make a few predictions. The leader of the military portion of the government, al-Burhan, seems to be wanting to institute more military control in Sudan. Now, it should be stated that this particular general, al-Burhan, is actually more popular among pro-democratic supporters because he has historically gone out and spoken with protesters and listened to their demands and wanted to actually previously institute a transitional government to democracy. Now, I want to end this report by saying, if what is occurring ends up being an actual full military coup, and it seems that that is what's happening, this is going to be a major setback for Sudan. After it instituted this transitional government led by the civilian Abdalla Hamdok, Sudan was removed from the United States state sponsor of terrorism list. It was able to partake in multiple international organizations. It was open for international trade and economic cooperation. But Sudan has also had a lot of economic problems. Many different international investment institutions have actually pushed Sudan to introduce new economic protocols, laws, and procedures that have shocked the country. Every form of transition, whether it's political or economic, is extremely difficult and delicate. And something like this occurring can potentially set back Sudan by decades. The situation is going to develop. I'm going to do a report on the update. If there is a significant amount of information coming in on a minute-by-minute basis, I will actually be doing a live stream, though I'm not going to guarantee that. That depends on the information coming out, which again has been really difficult. And finally, I want to add that protesters and different supporters of different groups, those who are on the side of the military and those who are on the side of the democratic movement, have been taking to the streets. Now, these protests currently have not turned excessively violent. What videos have shown and what has been reported so far is that protesters have been lighting tires on fire, which is actually kind of a classical thing during a protest or a minor riot. And security forces and military forces have been using tear gas to disperse them. There have not been any civilian casualties, and there has not been any civilian deaths so far. Now, that could change. That's our report for today. I would like for you to comment and let me know how you think the situation is going to develop. If you have any information on what's going on in Sudan, comment, let us know. Information is difficult to come by now. I will be giving an update. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.